Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, Deconstructing Narcissism. I did not think that God, you're an idiot. Sorry, this guy just pulled out in front of me. I did not think I would be back for a part 2, but I have some more things to say about as far as antinatalism and my thoughts on it. So this is going to be my thoughts on antinatalism video part 2. So I think it's I think in terms of deciding whether or not you should have kids as well, continuing on from part 1, I think it's not an easy thing to, I mean, for me it is. For me, I've always known that I didn't want kids ever since I was, 9, 10. I just knew I didn't want kids. I mean, my mom would be like, well, one day you're gonna want kids. When you grow up, you're gonna get married to a nice girl. You're gonna have kids in a nice house, and I was lied to. Most of our generation was lied to. We're not gonna have the nice picket fence and the kids, even if we want them, because it's just due to the lack of resources and due to the baby boomers ruining most of the economy that we see today. But that's on a different note. Anyway, I wanted to talk about a few more reasons as to why I don't think, my thoughts on antinatalism and why I don't think it's a good idea to have kids. Like I said in my previous video, I would not consider myself an antinatalist per se. I've never really thought about it that deeply as to whether or not it was one. So I don't consider myself an antinatalist. I do think that humans have their place here, as well as other animals, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it's just not a wise idea to reproduce and have more people. The most obvious reason being we already have enough people on this planet. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. There's 8 billion people on this planet. We are the largest species of mammal. We are the largest in terms of all the species, all the groups of species. We are dominant, the most dominant. We are on top of the food chain. We are not going anywhere. Like I said, we do not need to have any more people living on this planet. And it's just in terms of, sorry, there's these people walking here just randomly. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're just, I don't know. See, and that's another thing. It's just people. There are so many stupid people who should not be having kids. I'll give you an example of that. People who are living in poverty before they have kids. If you have a kid when you are living in poverty already, and you have a kid, out of your own free will because you think it's a good idea, you are an absolute moron. If you bring a kid into this world and you are already in poverty, you are a moron, and you need to give up your child because you're not going to be able to take care of it. People, like I said in my previous, people do not think of the implications of having a child. When you bring a child into this world, you are bringing a child who is going to needlessly suffer. They're going to have to figure out how to live in this, if you even want to call it free market capitalism anymore, because it's not free market capitalism. It's, like I said, it's more like an oligarchy now, where the corporations have all the control, have all the wealth, and we're just stuck working for them. We're all stuck at the bottom, at their beck and call, at their will, working for these corporations that don't even make life worth living. I mean, when you bring a child into this world, you are going to have to teach that child how to fend for themselves in a world that is increasingly growing ever more hostile each passing day. I mean, it is just, it's rough out here in 2023. It is rough, and it is not fun. And 90% of the time, you're going to be doing something that's not fun. 90% of the time, I would say. Most of the time, most of life is not fun. You know, even when you're a kid, it's not guaranteed that you're going to have fun, okay? You don't get to choose your parents. You don't get to choose their income level. You don't get to choose whether or not they have you. You don't get to choose any of it. You know, life is, in a sense, you know, the shittiest video game that you have to continue playing over and over and over again, despite how unfair it is, despite how much effort you put into it, where the results of life are, you know, the equivalent of putting a coin into a casino or a slot machine and hoping that you win the jackpot. I mean, that's pretty much life. You're every time with life, every person you bring into this life, you're taking a gamble. It's like putting a coin into a claw machine and, you know, expecting to get a toy with the claw machine, even though 99% of the people don't get the toy from the claw machine. It's like putting a quarter in a slot machine and expecting to win the jackpot. I mean, that's essentially what you're doing when you bring another life into this world. You're hoping that, you know, your kid, your future daughter, your future son is going to be the next Elon Musk, or they're going to be the next Jeff Bezos, or they're going to be the next person that goes to the moon, or you know, or is at NASA. You're hoping, you're putting all your faith in expectations onto this child that they are going to be the next great thing. And you know, a lot of parents, when, you know, they have kids and they're not that thing that they wanted them to be, they're disappointed. They're like, oh, how dare you? You're failing out of school. You're doing this. You're doing that. You're not living up to our expectations of what we wanted for you, even though you've never asked to be here. You're not living up to our expectations. I mean, parents, like natalists, people who have kids, most people who have kids, I honestly believe that they don't really want kids. They don't really want kids, because if they did want kids, then they'd be doing it for they'd be doing it 100% too selflessly. I mean, their reasons would be 100% selfish, but most people just want kids to make themselves feel better about their situation or about life. Most people want kids, whether for their own selfish reasons, whether that be, you know, they want to show them off as a trophy. They want to have a kid in the hopes of that kid being able to pull them out of poverty one day, or I want to have a kid, you know, who's going to take care of you? Like so many parents, narcissistic parents say, who's going to take care of you when you grow up and you're older? That's why you should have children, because you're not going to have anybody to take care of you, and this and that. And most parents have kids for all the wrong reasons. And this is why I choose not to have kids. And to anybody who says that's narcissistic, well, sorry, it's not narcissistic. I mean, you can believe it's not narcissistic to have children, but you can really think about it this way. I mean, really put yourself in, you know, really put yourself in my shoes. Really put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Like, imagine yourself in the shoes of your future child, if you were to have a child. Like, imagine the suffering that your child's going to go through. Imagine the trials and tribulations and all the bullshit your child's going to have to go through. All the things the world is going to expect from your future child if you have one. I mean, you're bringing somebody into this world who obviously didn't ask to be here. They can't consent to being here. But yet you're choosing to take a gamble by having a kid. You're choosing to take a gamble in the hopes that he or she will turn out to be a good human being who will work for the system, who will enjoy life, and who will make you proud. Like I said, most parents are not having kids out of the kindness of their hearts. They're not doing it for selfless reasons. They're doing it for reasons that are in their own self-interest, whether that's, oh, well, you know, I think that having kids will bring me joy. I think that having kids will add value to my life. I think that having kids will bring joy to their life, which will bring joy to my life. I think they're going to enjoy life. It's not, they're not doing it for the right reasons. Like I said, it's mostly based on their own self-interest. So, you know, before you have a kid, really before you have a kid, if you want a kid, why don't you just adopt a kid? Why don't you go to, you know, an orphanage? Why don't you, you know, apply to adopt a kid? Why don't you look at all the kids, all the millions of kids who are in orphanages? Why don't you go into an orphanage, and why don't you look at all the millions of kids that are in the orphanages and pick out a kid and raise that kid? It makes much more sense to go into an orphanage and find some poor kid who got abandoned by his parents, who also didn't want, you know, who didn't want him, even though they had decided to have a kid. Some poor kid who got abandoned by their parents and got sent to an orphanage. Why don't you go to an orphanage and find, you know, a child to raise? You know, if you really want a kid, then that's something that you should take into consideration. But like I said, I believe most people want their own kids because it's based on their own self-interest. Well, I want a kid that looks like me. I want a kid, you know, I want to have a kid to teach him how to become this and that, just like me. Or I want to have a kid, you know, that has my face and has my eyes and has my hair. Like, again, it's all goes back to people wanting kids for their own self-interest. If they really wanted kids, more people would adopt. But so many people refuse to adopt because it comes with behavioral problems and things like that, and people find that as a challenge that they don't want to deal with. They're like, well, I just much rather have my own kid, you know, have it be a clean slate, and I can teach them from the ground up. You know, if I have it's like the same reason people, you know, I feel like it's the same reason people go to breeders and, you know, get a dog from the breeder instead of the pound. It's just because, well, you know, they have behavioral issues and they have problems, and people don't want to deal with that. See, if people really wanted kids, they would want to take on the challenge of raising somebody else's kid who got dropped off at an orphanage that they didn't want. Like, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. We have billions of people here. We're not going away anytime soon. Most of the people, if they really wanted a kid, then they would adopt. And that's my honest opinion. But like I said, I think most people have their own interest in mind, and I think they do it for mostly selfish reasons. But yeah, my opinion is strong on it. I really don't believe that we need any more people here. We're not going anywhere. We're fine as it is. We are on top of the food chain. We are the dominant species. You know, humans do. There are good things and bad things that humans do, but most humans do more damage than they do good. We're doing more damage to this earth than we are doing good. Most people are greedy. Most people are selfish. Most people do things that are in their own best interest only. And, you know, in a way, I don't blame them because of how this system is set up. This system is set up to the point where we have to fend for ourselves. Like, everybody's on our own. The system is set up to where everybody has to be on their own. And, you know, once upon a time, it didn't have to be like that. Once upon a time, we lived in groups, and we lived in communities, and we helped each other out. But I mean, those times are gone. Consumerism, capitalism, if you want to call it capitalism, but it's really just crony capitalism or whatever you want. It's not even capitalism anymore. It's just some other form of an oligarchy, if you want to call it capitalism. But, you know, if it was really capitalism, we would have choices, but we really don't have choices. It's serve the corporations or start your own business, which costs a lot of money. And you're either the exploiter in this world or you are the exploited. There is no other way around it. So, anyway, I'm kind of getting off track. But would I say, like, 100% that I'm antinatalist, that I'm an antinatalist? No, I would not consider myself an antinatalist, but yes, I am strongly against bringing more people into this world. Just because of how many people we already have here, and just because of how many unwanted kids we have in orphanages, or we have roaming the streets, or there's just so much sadness, despair, death, corruption, and destruction. Do we really need to bring one more soul into this world for the corporate masters, the corporations, to use and abuse and throw away? So I think that's something to think about. I think before you have kids, you really need to think about what you're going to put that life through. Because that person's not going to be a kid forever. Eventually they're going to have to grow up. They're going to have to find some meaning in this fucked up world, whatever that meaning may be. And they're going to have to deal with everyday life. They're going to have to deal with their emotions. They're going to have to deal with what they see around them. They're going to have to deal with the fact that they're going to die, most likely a painful death, and they don't know how they're going to die. And they're just going to have to deal with it. They're going to have to find some meaning while, coming to terms with the fact that, they're going to work for the rest of their life, most likely, and they're not going to be able to retire, especially with the way this economy is. They're going to be working for somebody else. They're most likely not going to like their job, and they're going to have to come to terms with they're going to they're going to die. And it is most likely going to be painful, and they're not going to know when or how they're going to die. And I think, I've come to terms with the fact that, even if I wanted kids, I just don't think that I could bring another person into this into this hellhole. I mean, there are like good things about life. There are the good, but the good things they're far and few between compared to the bad that's here, in my opinion. So I can't, out of the goodness of my heart, bring somebody else into this world to suffer. So, I mean, I know I kind of got into a really long rant here, but, yeah, those are my thoughts, guys. So, let me know if you have another video recommendation that you want me to do. Put a comment down below underneath this channel. Let me know if you like the video, comment, subscribe, like, all that stuff. And, yeah, guys, this has been my thoughts on antinatalism part 2. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.